Okay, we'll get started. I know we're starting a few minutes late here. 7:11. Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Sarvo Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangapada Panishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyana Vastita Tatkatena Manasa Pashyanti yam yoginaha yasyantam na vidhusura suraganaha devaya tasmai namaha sarvadharman parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyah mokshayishyami ma shuchaha. So we are on the 6th chapter, and basically we have been discussing about the aspects of the highest form of meditation. And this highest form of meditation is possible only when I have the knowledge of really who I am. And that is this aspect of self-knowledge, which we mention about it. And this self-knowledge is the most important thing, because without the self-knowledge, we cannot really achieve that highest form of meditation. All the other forms of meditation that we practice today is essentially nothing but steps towards going to that highest form. So in 6th chapter, in the last session, we actually covered that the core of what the 6th chapter is about. What exactly is that Vedantic meditation? So today we will actually be moving on to shlokas 29 through 32. And again, that's another most beautiful portion of the 6th chapter. But prior to that, I was thinking that maybe if somebody has want to do a reflection on any particular shloka, we can do that. I don't know if Meenu, if you are.
Yeah, I have prepared. Yeah.
Very good. Very nice.
I chose 26th, shloka number 26.
26, very nice. Let's see.
It's the yato yato nischarati.
Okay, beautiful.
So the meaning is of that, the meaning of that shloka is, from whatever caused the restless and the unsteady mind wanders away, from that let him restrain it and bring it back to be under the control of the self alone. So we have to be vigilant we know that the nature of human mind is to go away and it gets lost in thoughts. So we should immediately bring the mind back to meditation. We have to tell the thought, not now. We should always remember that realization will come if we concentrate totally on our own self, forgetting everything and not letting even a single thought. If we try to make our mind one-pointed through spiritual practices, thought waves gradually decreases. Having pure, innocent love for God or Guru, that helps in disappearing the walls of thoughts. The constant and one-pointed remembrance of God makes one forget all about the world. Like gopis and gopas, their minds were always filled with love of God. So once we become established in the remembrance, we will see and think everything is God. We should have attitude of complete surrender to God. And we know that he always protects us. So we should remind ourselves whenever we go in there, like, no, he's there. The phalam of which is that once we still our mind, then an experience of bliss, happiness, and peace will arise from within.
So beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Very nice. I love the way you said, the restraint will happen when I totally surrender to that ultimate God principle. And when that happens, the mind, the restlessness goes away. Right? Beautiful. So next week, if there's somebody else who would like to do it, it'll be great. Okay, so today we will again chant from Shlokas 15, and then we will see the chapter section on 29 to 32. Okay, so that is the idea. And here, like I said before, these shlokas, as we're getting deeper into it, we are really discussing this topic of Nidhi Dhyasanam. Nidhi Dhyasana, or we call this as the Vedantic meditation. And Nidhi Dhyasanam is always preceded by Mananam, which is reflection on the verses, which is what Meenuji did just now, which is reflecting on this particular shloka number 26. And prior to Mananam, of course, we have this aspect of Shravanam, where I'm truly trying to understand who I am, So in order to understand who I am, we have this whole knowledge that we have studied so far, all the way from chapter 1 to chapter 6, where we saw about how, Arjuna thought that he was his finite self, and he was getting so worked up because he was going to face this war. And from there on, slowly, Lord Krishna is trying to turn his mind away from who he thinks who he is to who he actually is. So that's the powerful thing of Bhagavad Gita, which we see here. And all this can happen only when we do that systematic study. And that is why we have not just 700 verses of Bhagavad Gita, but our whole Shastras is all about this turning. I think this is who I am to who I really am. That whole thing is what our whole Shastras is trying to produce, that knowledge in our mind. So it's like, when I look at the mirror, when I'm looking at a mirror, if the mirror is completely clean and is placed really in front of me, then I can actually get a real picture of my face. And this can happen only if many things. First, my mind has to be clean. My eyes has to be not defective, right? So only then it can happen. So today we are facing everything with a mind which is not clean, which has got so many impurities. All the likes, the raga, dvesha, we say, the likes, the dislikes, and all the other qualities, all the other negative qualities, of, everything we say, the jealousy, envy, all that. And of course, many others, ambitions, everything. So those all constitute the impurities in my mind, which prevents me from seeing who I am. And Bhagavad Gita is the true mirror, which, or the true, if you can call it mirror also, which really is when you place it in front of you. And if my mind is very clean, then I'm able to witness who I am. So in that sense, Bhagavad Gita is just that instrument which allows me to see who I am. And that is what we are seeing. And in 6th chapter is very powerful in that sense, because it tells you about the techniques of meditation, which allows you to do that mananam on all the shlokas and to reflect on who I am. So let's chant from shloka 15. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Yunjannevam sadatmanam yogi niyatamaanasaha shantim nirvana paramam matsamstham adhigacchati natyash natastu yogosti nachaikantamanashnataha nachati swapnashilasya jagrato naiva charjuna Yuktahara viharasya, yuktacheshthasya karmasu, yuktasvapnavabodhasya, yogo bhavati dukkha, yada viniyatam chittam, atmanyevavatisthate, nispriha sarvakamebhyah, yukta ityuchyate tada. Yatha deepo nivatastha nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha yatro paramate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyannatmani tushyati sukhamatyantikam yattad Buddhi grahyamatīndriyam veti yatra na chaivayam stitas chalati tatvataha yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadhikam tataha yasmin stito na dukkhena gurunam api vicharyate tam vidya dukkha sanyogam Viyogam yoga sangitam sanishchayena yoktavyaha yogo nirvinna chetasa sankalpa prabhavan kaman tyaktva sarvana sheshataha manasaivendriya gramam viniyamya samantataha shanai shanai ruparamed Buddhya dhriti grihitaya atma samstam manah kritva na kinchidapi chintayet yato yato nischarati manaschanchalamasthiram tatastato niyam yaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet prashanta manasam hyenam yoginam Sukham muttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahma bhutama kalmasham. So he talks about ultimately when that mind is, where that mind, where all the desires and the sankalpas have been completely sort of quietened with the right understanding, then that mind gets filled with the peace, and that peace itself is that state of Brahman. Where he says, Yoginam sukhamuttamam prashanta manasam hi enam upaiti shantarajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. So as a summary of how this shloka ties up to is, when I start off with, I gave that example of Arjuna looking outwards and facing the war versus Arjuna truly understanding who he is. And that is the sense of dispassion indicating where in every action of mine, I recognize that this is not, this is not this finite Sunitha who's doing things, but it is really, the ultimate, the absolute Brahman working through me. So that's when I do this, I develop the sense of dispassion or no doership. And this no doership leads to that no ahankara, no aham bhava, the I-ness and the minus. And that leads to that aspect of me being part of the bigger jagat, if you want, or the bigger universe. So that leads to that aspect of universality. And when I do that, then my mind becomes completely one with that Brahman. And when that happens, that leads to that supreme peace, and that itself is that ultimate happiness. So you see how the actually it's a ladder of rise, what we're seeing here. And that happiness is that ultimate happiness which we are actually trying to get in this world, So when I'm trying to, when I'm working hard in my job to get higher, I think that I will be very happy when I get there. But actually what I'm doing is I am actually seeking that same happiness, but my method of seeking has to be changed. And that is what we are leading to, because that happiness is actually me, myself, and I'm not able to recognize that because I have put a different kind of a condition to reach that state. So this is what he's saying. And then this is why this particular picture is beautiful, which is to show that it is whatever happiness that I'm seeking is already me. And that happiness here, for example, is, like it's like this bee trying to get to the flower. The flower doesn't have to seek the bee because the flower itself has that honey in it, So the flower does not seek actually that bee. It is the bee that is seeking the flower. So the bee of happiness settles naturally on the flower of a peaceful mind. That is the point here. So supreme bliss, which I showed in that last slide here, is seen from that absolute standpoint, which to show that it is me alone. I don't have to go seeking for that happiness. I am that happiness. So it is not an accident. It is my own self, and I'm seeking my own self in that regard. So last week we discussed this beautiful shloka, which is Yunjan Nevam Sadatmanam Yogi Vigata Kalmashaha Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukham Ashnute. So when a person is always engaged in the mind in understanding that I myself am happiness, in and through every activity, there is a change in that approach. Earlier, I would be engaging in any activity, whether it's my work, whether it is, going out, any activity. When I would be engaged in that activity, thinking that when I get something or when I'm experiencing something, I will get the happiness. It's always, I will get the happiness. It is with that intention that I engage. But here he's saying that the person engages in the duty in anything, recognizing already that that person is happy. So then that person engages in the activity because of the it's like a train which has already left the station. It is going on its path. It does what it has to do to go to the final destination. So you engage in the activity because you are meant to do that activity. Like, when Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda was asked about, why are you doing all this? he would say, well, this is the force of the samashti, it is the force of everything coming together for which that activity has to go on. So that is the kind which he's saying, Yunjan Nevam Sadatvanam Yogi Vigata Kalmashaha Sukhena Brahma Samsparsham Atyantam Sukham Ashrinte. So here, the person is always engaged in that. And here, the word jnanam actually, it means shanti, it means total peace here. And this peace doesn't happen just like that. It's always there. But the other things that we can show from the shloka is that this is a slow process. It doesn't happen again overnight. It's just like, when I was a baby long time ago, I did not grow up to this person who I am right now. It took a long time, right? So to hear this aspect of recognizing that I am that Shanti, I am that peace, it happens slowly, but it requires also an effort which has to be done consistently. So that is why this word evam atmanam sada yunjan. So, it is like physiotherapy. When I go, suppose I have a problem with my hand or something, and I go to a physiotherapist, they tell you have to come for 10 settings or 15 settings or 30 settings, only then my hand will get better, right? So it is sada, evam atmanam sada yunjan. The person has to be in that process continuously. Only then this can happen. So it has to become a habit. Only then this vigata kalmashaha. So which means vigata kalmashaha means that all the impurities which is in my mind. And what are those impurities? It is that impurities which we call this as viparita bhavana. Viparita bhavana meaning this habitual sort of, at this highest level of Vedanta, he says Vigata Kalmashaha is the Viparita bhavana or negative thinking. And negative thinking from the point of this aspect that when I think, this is who I am. When I think of myself as Sunitha, immediately this aspect of I-ness, that I did it. Like, let's say this conference itself, when I say that, I did it and because of that it was successful. No, that's wrong, right? I know that this could not have happened without the help of everybody. The speakers came in, all the people, all the whole team got together, the weather had to be right, everyone had to cooperate and do it, right? So Vigata Kalmashaha is really is hitting that point in us, which is, it is a kalmasham or a negative thinking if I think that I did it. So here he's trying to show how, that yogi, that person who is engaging himself in any activity is always engaged in that activity, knowing that that person is an instrument. And later in chapter 11, we'll come across this beautiful term called nimitta karanam, Savasachin, indicating that we are all nothing but instruments. But that we'll come to later. But here he's just trying to show that always when this yogi is engaged, such a person, and that is why this word Vigata Kalmashaha is very, very important. Many of you have read Wayne Dyer, right? Are you familiar with this word, law? He used to be really popular, I think, back in like 2000 and all that. We used to read a lot of books by him. He wrote this beautiful book called Your Erroneous Zone. So we are in that kind of an erroneous zone where we think that this is who I am, this is how, I wrote, or this is this aspect of, we are in this erroneous zone thinking that this is who I am. Does that mean that I should never think like that? No, we have to think. For example, if I'm going to a doctor to get myself treated, at that point, I cannot say that, no, this is not Sunitha or whatever. No, at that point, I do have to think that this is my body and I have to take care of it. So, but then this aspect has to be, whenever that is not needed, where I have to bring this I-ness into mind, if I can just be in that state of, in that highest state of Vedanta, which he's talking about, then that will help me to get rid of all these impurities. And the shloka is so beautiful because then he says, when I do that, sukhena, it's very easy. I can just glide into that state of meditation. So is it really a difficult path? So he's trying to say, no, it is very, very easy from that point to glide into that meditation. It just requires only that we do it, just do it. That's what he's trying to say. Just start this process of meditation. Just do it today. Just continue with it. And it will not, and he assures, Lord Krishna assures that it'll happen just like that. You do not have to think that, oh my God, if I start today, hopefully I don't have much time to live or whatever, I'm just, it sounds a little negative when I say I don't have much time to live. That's not what, point being that, we think, okay, in my next janma, maybe I'll reach that state. But he's saying, no, it is sukhena samsparsha, literally easily you can just get to it and you can just get into that state of meditation. So we did this last time. So we move on to the shlokas 29 to 42. So this 29 to 32 shlokas, literally with shloka number 28, actually the whole process of meditation has been explained. And if we need to know more about the process of meditation and everything, there are, of course, many books that have been written, a lot of things which we can get into. But now he introduces a different concept from the shlokas 29. And what is that? Is, usually, like I said, in all our transactions, I have this perception that, I am Sunitha, right? I am Sunitha and you are Minu, you are Geeta, like that, and that's how we interact. But in this next three shlokas, he tries to show how that is really not the right way of thinking. There is something which is even beyond this. And what is that? To show that how that who I am is actually connected with everybody else. And to get to that level, he introduces these three shlokas. So in a sense, actually what it is, I'm expanding myself. Not physically, I'm not expanding myself into, taking everyone's bodies and then becoming really this big person. That's not what he's trying to show. He's trying to really show how I can expand in my mind. So let us see how in shloka 29, how do I expand myself mentally? Sarvabhutas tamatmanam, sarvabhutas tamatmanam, sarvabhutani chatmani, sarvabhutani chatmani, ikshate yoga yuktatma, ikshate yoga yuktatma, sarvatra samadarshanaha, sarvatra samadarshanaha. So how do we expand ourselves? How do I really expand this consciousness, who I think I am? So he says, we have to look at it from not as a vyashti, like, in the previous thing, I think I didn't. So vyashti means an individual, but I have to look at myself as samashti, samashti, or the whole universe, everything, including the plants, the animals, everything included. When I look at myself as that whole thing, that's that aspect what he's trying to show here. So sarva bhutastam, which indicates that self, that consciousness which is there in everything. Sarva bhuta means all beings. Atmanam, he sees himself. Atmanam in sarva bhutastam. So, and not only that, I see all the beings in myself. Sarva bhutani cha atmani. So not only does this person see himself in everything, but the person also sees all the beings in himself, cha atmani, ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. So when I have that kind of a feeling, then that person is established, that thus sees the one who's harmonized by yoga, who has equal vision towards all. Only then we would say that that person is really has a total equal vision towards everything. So he sees that, so the jiva, the individual, which we call that as a jiva, so that jiva has now expanded himself or herself to thinking about the whole world, the whole universe. No longer is this person just this finite thing, like me, to indicate, even if I take this conference as an example, for the sake of putting it on the brochure, I can put my name there, but then I recognize that it's only for the sake of the brochure. Ultimately, the work that went into making that whole conference happened because everybody was part of it. And everybody just comes together with only one notion that this conference has to be successful. And it has to reach to so many youth. And all the youth have to, being the next generation, have to see the knowledge which is there in the Shastras and take it forward. So in that sense, this conference which happened last week was just so beautiful, because all the speakers, they gelled together, all the organizers gelled together, and everyone produced this beautiful fabric where there was, everyone recognized what was going on. Was there any lot of flaws in it? Yes, there were flaws. But at the end of the day, people recognized what the highest goal was. So all that can happen only when we really see this as the meditator sees his self in all beings and all beings in his self, his or herself. That is the idea behind this. That is that ultimate state. And so in that sense, this is such a beautiful shloka. So let us see this with an example, okay? Now, you see this beautiful example of really this ocean. So in this ocean, you see all these bubbles, these waves, and each, you see literally that water in the form of so many different things. We might say, oh, isn't this just water? But when I'm in the ocean, I actually don't see the water. I see the bubbles, the froth, the big wave, the small wave, all this. Each one of them, even as I'm saying it, you can see that it has a name, right? It has a name, it has a form, and it has some quality to it. So we can assume that, each one of us, let's assume that each one of these waves, is actually one of us. Now, meditation basically allows us to expand what this notion of what this wave is. First, we begin to see, that there are so many different kinds of waves in here, right? But ultimately, we see also that, these waves which are big, some of them which are small, some of them which are as small, they just last for just a few seconds. Some of them might be, a little longer than that, based, ultimately depending upon how much that wave develops. But at the end of the day, I recognize that it is all nothing but water, right? So that's how I need to expand my own vision. I need to get to really the base of what each one of this wave is, which is nothing but water. And then I recognize that ultimately it doesn't matter that in this world, there's somebody who's doing much better than I am, somebody not that well, somebody who has a big house, somebody doesn't have has a small house, somebody has a big family, somebody has a small family. But ultimately in all this, it is me alone. It is me alone who is in Minu, for example. It is me alone who is in Gita. Me alone who is in everybody. It is I, in that form, I'm doing all this. Isn't that very powerful? I don't have to, I don't have to now be in America, I can be where I am in Kerala, but it is me alone who is in Troy, and me alone who is in West Bloomfield, who is enjoying everything. It's me alone who's enjoying the winter there, me alone who's, it's the same me. So why do I need to go to all these places, right? So just in a very simplistic sense, I'm trying to say that. So it is me alone who's everywhere. If I can have that vision, it's just so beautiful. It just brings in one shot all the problems down, because I say, yeah, it's after all, I am doing that. So why should I feel jealous of somebody else? Why should I feel envious? Especially for our young youth these days who are so stuck with that number of likes and dislikes, and a number of likes, I guess, not dislikes, number of likes on a Facebook page, right? I don't have to feel bad that this other person has more likes than me when I post a picture on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, or if I write something on Twitter, I don't have to worry. After all, it's me alone who's writing that, right? So I just thought it's such a beautiful example to do that. So which takes you now on a similar theme to shloka number 30, where, where you see now slowly Lord Krishna is turning that wheel from that Jnana Yoga, which is shown in the shloka 29, to Bhakti Yoga. Okay. So he says that now he's telling Arjuna, one who sees me in all and sees all in me, to him I'm never lost. And that person is not lost to me at all. I'm always there for that person. So, in the previous shloka, he talks about how the yogi who sees himself in everything and sees everything in him, such a person has that equal vision. So here he says, about Krishna. He says Krishna is assuring everyone. So let's chant the shloka and then look at that meaning again. Yo mam pashyati sarvatra, yo mam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam cha mayi pashyati, sarvam cha mayi pashyati, tasyaham na pranashyami, tasyaham na pranashyami, sacha na pranashyati. Sachamena pranashyati. So he says, Yaha, that person who sees me, he's telling about Krishna. Yeah, he's talking about himself. Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna He says, that person who sees me in everything, in all, and cha mai pashyati. So, and in me, he sees, for that person, I'm never ever far away. I'm always so close to him, so close, So what again, another powerful thing for mental health, I feel, where so many children, they feel that there is nobody there to whom they can talk to, and here Krishna is assuring, that I'm there. Just think of me, and then nothing, you'll be totally in my hands, in my bosom. I'll take care of you, So yahamam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam chamai pashyati, tasya aham na pranashyami. I will never get separated from you, and nor will you get separated from me, Saha cha me na pranashyati. So again, let's take that same beautiful example, which I showed now, which is this ocean here. Okay, when this ocean, he says about, where he's comparing now to that ultimate, Krishna is Ishvara here. He's now, he's basically speaking to us directly as Ishvara. He says that devotee, and when Minu explained earlier about the surrender principle, when he says, when I surrender to that Krishna, and I see Krishna everywhere, I remember a long time in Balavihar, we did this beautiful camp, Krishna, Krishna everywhere, So when I see that Krishna everywhere, and in Krishna I see everything, there is a permanent connection, complete permanent bond, so strong, that is established. And to that person, Krishna will never be again distant at all, and he'll never be invisible also, because that's another thing people say, right? I don't know who this God is. He's not really visible to me. How do I know he really exists? Is he really there? So for all this shloka is really offering that assurance that I'm there. Just hold on to me. I think about that beautiful story of Gopala also, about this young boy who is going in the forest. He has to go through the forest to the school. And, his mother says, there is Gopala in the forest. Just call out to him if you have any problem. That faith that is there, that takes him through, we need to bring those stories back now and make it part of this mental health intervention modules. Sometimes, when somebody goes to a therapist for issues, I think we have to feed them all these stories, which are already there in our Puranas and everything, and tell the children, because ultimately, now literally every child has a therapist, that's what we are hearing. And in America, especially, we have not just medical insurance, but we have mental insurance that is being offered. You don't need all that if we feed them with stories and give them that assurance, that Krishna is everywhere. Krishna is there in you. Krishna is there in me. Krishna is in everyone. Just have to change the focus in thinking that it's not just me, but it is me everywhere. That is the previous shloka. Here he's saying Krishna himself. If you want to get a friend, you have that Krishna. So, which now brings to the next shloka 31, where he's now trying to make that concept even more clearer in terms of the bhakti element. Okay. So far we were seeing the Jnana Yoga, then he explained this. Now he will say even more about getting into the Bhakti Yoga part of it. It's just like how for a child, when you're trying to give them some really bitter medicine and the child is not able to gulp it. So what do? You kind of coat it with some sugar or something and then give it, and the child is able to drink it, right? So too, in this shloka, you will see about how Krishna is saying that, bringing that sweet bhakti rasa into that Jnana Yoga message so that we can also accept it even more easier. Sarvabhutasthhitam yo mam, Sarvabhutasthhitam yo mam, bhajatyekattvamastitaha, bhajatyekattvamastitaha, sarvatha vartamanopi, sarvatha vartamanopi, sayogi mai vartate, sayogi mai vartate. So here it's kind of pure bhakti yoga where he's trying to say, ultimately, sarva bhutastitham yahamam, he who worships me. Okay, so sarva bhuta, again the word sarva bhuta is coming here. When somebody recognizes me completely, that I'm present in all beings, Krishna is saying, he who worships me is abiding in all beings. Yaha, one who beholds that oneness. Ekatvam, one who holds that oneness. Such a person, sarvata vartamanaha api, whatever be his mode of living, however, in whatever different situations, circumstances that person may be, so whether it's a poor, rich, a scientist, an innovator, an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter. Ultimately, for that person has to recognize that that Krishna is there within everyone. Whenever that person thinks that way, only such a person will be completely connected with me, or such a person, yogi, abides in me. Saha yogi mai vartate. So that person now resides in me. So he's establishing, if you see beautifully from this last three shlokas, 29, 30, 31, first, it was pure Jnana Yoga. He explained that. And then in 30, he was trying to establish that connection of this Tat Tvam Asi, So he explained about the Tat, then he was explaining about Asi part of it. And now he's saying, Tvam, you are now established in me. So just a beautiful explanation through the Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga is brought out in these three shlokas. When such a person can just have that kind of a perception, that kind of a understanding, that person has absolutely no problems at all. So that is what he's trying to show, that oneness, that ekatvam, that knowledge, and worshipping that absolute self, that vision of oneness, that itself is devotion. So you see that smooth transition which happens from the Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. And he's not trying to actually replace that Jnana Yoga with Bhakti Yoga, but he's just trying to bring that sweetness of it into it, and explaining how, Lord Krishna is everywhere, and that Lord Krishna is in me also. And again, that same example, what I want to bring here with that ocean and the wave, where he wants to show that connection. So if the wave, sees herself or himself as part of the ocean, and also sees that other waves as part of the ocean, then ultimately that wave will realize it is nothing but the ocean itself. You see? So that's the beauty of it. The wave doesn't see itself as individual. It sees that it is part of the ocean. All the other waves are also part of the ocean. So if that is the case, then I see myself as the ocean itself. So that is the whole connection from shloka 29 to 30 to 31. And when that happens, there is absolutely no separation between me and that ultimate Ishvara. I am part of that whole reality. and there is no separation at all. And by doing that, one attains that oneness, that ekatvam, what he's trying to say with that Ishvara. So let's take a mundane example to explain. I know as much as we understand the ocean example and everything, that's great. But here we have an example from a cricket team. Again, cricket is more popular here. Maybe next time I can put a baseball or a football as an example. When I'm sitting watching this game of cricket with this India thing, the minute somebody is wearing an Indian logo or everything, immediately I become one with the team. When the team is playing, when he hits a sixer or one thing, I'm like as if I've hit that sixer. I become one with the team. There is absolutely no difference at all. Of course, you may say that, well, I should also become part of the Pakistan team and everything. Yes, that is also, that is also oneness, of course. But here, for the sake of example, I'm saying how we get connected to the team, So with that, this shlokas really brings that beautiful sense of oneness or ekatvam. I was going to do 32 also, but that is, we will do it. Next week, we'll save the best for the last, for next week. We'll do that.
Sunitha ji?
Okay. Yes?
When you talk about 30 slogam, it just reminds me of Narayaniyam 17th chapter, the Duruva Charitram. The 5-year-old boy sits on the father's lap, and then the stepmother pushes him away, and then he is guided by Narada, and he's doing tavam for 5 months, and then the Lord comes in front of him. So
Yes.
Even with the 5-year-old boy, how much of this thing that he has on faith on God.
Correct.
And the God appears in front of him. So I was just connecting this to sloka number 30.
Beautiful. Very nice. So you
Dhruva
see,
story, that's Bhakta Dhruva.
Yes, Dhruva Charitram.
Correct. Dhruva Charitram, yes. So all the stories, when we heard when we were very young, and when our minds are fed with those stories, and later when we understand the Vedantic interpretation from it, how beautifully we're able to bring that connection back, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Even a 5-year-old boy can do, why not we? Right.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya, yes.
Yeah. So these 3 shlokas I just felt was so beautiful from just this one example of this ocean and the wave. And when we connect to this, so we'll do that. Next week, we'll do from 32 onwards. We'll just do a brief summary of again 29 to 31 and move on to the next. And next week, is anybody who'd like to review any shloka? Meena, would you like to do it, maybe? Or
Actually, I'll be traveling, I think so.
Sure.
Maybe
No
the following
worries.
week I can do it. For sure, I want to do, I'll do it.
Sure. Okay. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayah, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kasyat dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate. Purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let me stop the